All right, here we are. It is Monday. What is the date? It is Monday, June 9th. June 9th, Monday, June 9th. Um, as usual, I'm going to release this episode on Thursday, as I normally do. So some of the news might be a little outdated. My camera's all off off whack. I don't know. Messing with the damn computer last time, moving it around. But first things first, Alp. Get you some Alp, man. Go to the link in the description below for 10% off your can of Alp or order $70 or more for free shipping. Link in the description below. Get you some Alp. I smoked for 28 years and I quit last year on the 29th of May. It's been over a year now. Woohoo! Celebration time, buddy. But I, I quit cold turkey, and then I don't know, it was a month, 2 months after I'd quit. One of the kids I was working with had one of those nasty brands that he was carrying around with him. I was like, "You like those things?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're good." I was like, "You mind if I try one?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." So I tried one, and I was like, "Meh." I like that. I like the kind of like burst of nicotine. It kind of like sparked me up, like got me moving, got me thinking. Kind of woke me up a little bit. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I started using a brand I no longer use. Came in a rectangle container, and then Tucker Carlson came out and started talking about Alp. In December of last year, I ordered me some Alp, put it on reoccurring order, 3 logs every month, $70 a month, free shipping, and I haven't looked back. It's the best there is. I love Alp. I stick with the wintergreen. I'm kind of boring that way, but there are a lot of different flavors. They're releasing new flavors this year. I think they just released a new flavor and they'll be coming out with another one. But yeah, go get you some Alp. Use the link in the description below for 10% off of your order and order $70 or more and get your free shipping. And instead of having to stop at the store every other day or every 3 days to resupply your nicotine, you have it directly there at your house and delivered straight to your door, and you can have your Alp whenever you want it. So yeah, go get Alp, man. Link in the description below. Okay, so I've been thinking about how to do this because I knew things at work are kind of crazy right now. They've been crazy for like over a month, and it's been difficult scheduling interviews and getting people on. And so last week I was thinking about the big beautiful bill, and I was like, I should talk about that some and discuss what I think about what's going on with that a little bit and where the media is misleading as usual and stuff. But then over the weekend we had these riots pop off, and I want to start off talking about these riots. I don't really care to talk too much about the National Guard aspect of it. I mean, it's a reality. What are you going to do about it? Whether I like it or not. And I don't know how I feel about it at the moment because I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out how I think it's going to play out, I guess, and think about that a little bit more. But I was hanging out with some friends yesterday, so I wasn't really paying close attention to the news. I do have a life outside of podcasting and work. I have a wife, I have dogs, I have chickens, I believe it or not, like I do have some friends. Like, wow, what a concept. So yeah, I was hanging out with my wife and some friends yesterday. Wasn't really paying attention to the news too closely. I had caught a glimpse. I think on Saturday after work, I'd caught a glimpse that there were some riots going on in LA, but I didn't really look too deeply into it. And I still haven't looked super deeply into it, but I've looked at a couple of things and I kind of have some opinions on that. But in order to talk about that in an honest way and really dig into how I feel about that, I think we should go back to the George Floyd riots. Okay. And at that time I had released an episode called Blowback in the George Floyd riots or something like that. It was kind of like this kind of goof of a title Um, I was thinking like Zoot Suit Riot type, kind of like idea, like the swing music or whatever. And so I was just like, oh, that would be funny. That'd be a funny title. But so I think basically what I'd said during that episode, and I know Pete had me on his show after that to kind of like explore what I was thinking and how I looked at blowback and all that. Excuse me. But what I was getting at was these people, whether realistically or not, they believe that they have been under assault by the United States government. You have this 1619 project, you have the whole DEI push, you have all this stuff going on that wasn't in the ether back whenever I was growing up. I'm an old man. I'm 40. Well, not old, but I'm old enough. I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 in August. And I had a girl tell me the other day I look 60, but that's another fucking story. I was like, oh Jesus. I think it's the facial hair, but my wife loves the beard. And I threatened to shave it the other day, and she was not happy with even the thought. So I was kind of like, all right, I'll just deal with the winds in Huntsville and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and deal with it tangling up on me and brush it out as much as I can throughout the day and et cetera. Whatever. Back on topic. Um, so what my idea, my whole thought process was these people believe whether it's a real or whether it's reality or it's a false belief, there's a belief that a lot of people have that the population, the black population, has been unfairly treated by governments, by or our government, by the police departments specifically, and that they've been targeted. And so they, when they see something like what happened with George Floyd, um, and in the moment, I remember in the moment, everybody looked at that and was like, "Oh my God!" Like you even had like support the police conservatives coming out going, "That was terrible." And whether I've heard some arguments that they should pardon what's his name, Derek Chauvin, and I don't really have any thoughts on that. Haven't really like considered it. Um, it's hard to keep up with politics nowadays because it's so tabloid-esque. It's like all gossip and personality driven. Maybe it's always been that way, but it seems like it's just amplified so much with social media that everything is just it's all tabloid. Elon versus Trump. Um, Such and such gets fired for, stating opinion, or it's just all tabloid crap. You hear a lot about Meghan Markle, uh, the Diddy trial, and I'm just like, I don't care about all this nonsense. A lot of this stuff is just freaking nonsense to me. But what I don't find nonsense is stuff like what we're seeing in LA. I think this stuff is really important. I think it's important to understand how these things work. So what happens is, and it's been revealed through the investigation of Doge that a lot of what was going on with the Black Lives Matter riots is USAID was funding these NGOs, and they've always funded NGOs, and these NGOs have always been caught up in these color revolutions around the world. And I don't know if y'all remember, I did a podcast with Daniel McAdams where we were actually like comparing Black Lives Matter in the riots of 2020, the Summer of Love, to the color revolutions that he's seen firsthand, and how it was how similar they were. And so I I now that we have the hindsight, we have the information out that USAID funding these NGOs, and these NGOs that USAID was directly funding were funding Black Lives Matter, the national team for Black Lives Matter, the actual organization, and they were being funded by these NGOs that were getting money directly from USAID. So these riots, in turn, were financed by the government, by the United States government. And And so you're seeing a lot of the same things when it comes to the immigration debate and these riots that they're having in LA. And I think a lot more today than ever before. It's they're focusing a lot on the immigration topic. That's what they're talking about, right? We just got news that Kilimanjaro El Salvador Garcia, the gang member that was sent down to El Salvador and put in prison, that the Democrats, turned into a poster child for constitutional rights, is coming back up to the United States. He's going to be shipped out to Tennessee to face trial for human trafficking because apparently he had been involved in a human trafficking ring for several years. I know there was video out there of a police stop where there was like 8 people in his car or in a car that he said was his boss's car, and he didn't have a driver's license, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They contacted the FBI, I believe it was, and the FBI told them to let him go. Like, don't worry about it. And so you had these situations going on like that, and these a lot of these programs were funded and these by NGOs that were directly receiving their money from USAID. And so the Democrats are on the side of USAID, and now with the dissolution of USAID, kind of turning it over to the State Department, getting rid of the attempt to get rid of a lot of the programs that USAID was giving money to, and it being under the purview of the State Department, you're going to see a lot of people are pissed off because it's taken away from their pet projects. A lot of that money was being laundered. For every dollar you would send, like let's say you send money through USAID to feed starving children in Africa or fight HIV, in Africa. Well, uh, for instance, 88 cents of that dollar is getting eaten up in transit. Because what happens is USAID sends that money to an NGO, which skims off the top. Then they send that money to another NGO, which skims off the top. And it gets sent to another NGO, which skims off the top. And then it finally gets down to the local program in Africa, who skims off the top. And then whatever's left over, they use that to provide aid for the people in that area. So you're talking about 12 cents to the dollar actually receives the target. And this is a perfect example of why government is so inefficient and why it's much better that charity be taken care of on a personal basis and not through institutions like government that can be corrupted and utilized for wealth and empowerment. This is what we were talking about with Robert Herzog was actually talking about this to PBD, and I saw him on. He was also on Trigonometry, and he was on Laura Logan's podcast, and he talks about how when Jacob Zuma took over the government, they began to fire employees of these institutions that did the trash and the sewage and all these different amenities that were done around South Africa, and that the government was tasked with. And instead of paying these employees to continue the work, they were firing employees and skimming off the top. And so they would end up taking that employee's income for the year or whatever, and they would spread it amongst their friends. And they just keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that. Now there are places in South Africa where there's sewage in the streets. You have 6 hours a day of actual electricity in a lot of places. And then you have places like Cape Town, which is where Beatrix wants to move to, which is like basically like as Robert Herzog put it, it's like a Mediterranean city. It's very beautiful. It's a very nice place. I haven't been there, but I've seen a lot of pictures. Beatrix is constantly talking about it. She loves the place. She's been there several times, and it looks like if she has her way, that's where we're going to end up. And I think I'll be okay with that. I think I'm going to enjoy myself, no matter where I am. I I I've gotten to a point where I pretty much enjoy life. So anyway, that's beside the point. So that's what you're seeing with these NGOs, where they're just skimming off the top. They've figured out, like, they have this scam now, where they can get all this money. This is like that. This is why that like $2 billion to Stacey Abrams NGO for green energy when the NGO had just been started like I don't know, like 6 months before or something like that. And it was like weird. It's like seems to me like you're just giving your political partners money. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're just paying people, and just laundering money around and moving it around, and it's not actually going to what you say it's going to. And so that's what USAID has been doing, and they've been doing that abroad. And you'll hear about the color revolutions, the snow revolution. You had the Maidan revolution. You had the Arab Spring. All these different little like uprisings where they're not simply um, grassroots uprisings. What it is the you have activists. Like Barack Obama was. He was a community organizer. You have these community organizers that work for these NGOs that get paid to go out and to rile people up and to organize protests. And they organize protests knowing that there are going to be bad actors that get in there and utilize this activity for ill-gotten means, but they call it a diversity of tactics, and that's why they don't speak out against the violence, because the diversity of tactics is a weapon in order to move the move social um, ethos into their direction, to kind of move the zeitgeist into their direction, into their they want to frame the Overton window, let's say. And if the let's say the Overton window is traditionally a little more right wing, they're constantly shifting it closer and closer and closer to communism, to socialism, right? And it's intended. They're proud of this. They appreciate. I remember talking to a guy one time on Facebook when I was active on Facebook. You're talking, I don't know, back with my podcast when I first started the podcast. So it was like 2018, 2019, probably. And I'm talking. Well, no, it was after George Floyd. It was after the riots of George Floyd. Anyway, he was saying if you think last summer was bad, wait until next summer because we have plans. And they are proud of the destruction and the mayhem that they cause. And so they know going in we are utilizing the cover of these crowds in order to instill chaos into the society, to destabilize the government so that the government can then be toppled. This is how these color revolutions work. This is how they operate. And a lot of these people are funded by NGOs. Some of them are ideologically captured by communism or other violent, forms of ideology. And they believe that their ideology is is the best way forward and the ends justifies the means. Excuse me. So as they move, as we watch these riots in LA, we have to be aware this money is coming from somewhere. There's going to be a lot of money involved in creating this destabilization in LA and across the country. I mean, we've seen it these events organized in front of like ICE facilities, like in New Jersey, where the what was it, a senator or congressman or whatever, ended up getting arrested for assaulting an ICE officer. And then I think it was the mayor was taken into custody for trespassing. It was a weird situation. I didn't really understand what they were trying to get to. The body cam footage seemed to have been edited or cut off, and I didn't really understand what was happening with that. But it seems like they dropped the charges on the mayor, but they're pursuing charges on the congresswoman that punched the officer, and she did. She was throwing elbows. She was punching. I mean, it didn't look like she was hitting very hard. I mean, she wasn't. If you keep up, she's not Kayla Harrison. She's not going to throw a Kimura on somebody and rip. their arm off or anything like that. But yeah, she was a little chunky girl throwing elbows. You know, I was like, she looks like a transgender Charles Barkley or something out there throwing elbows. But you know, I guess you got to be my age to remember Charles Barkley playing basketball. Um, so these these protests, they're paid for, they're sponsored, they're organized, but they're not paid for all the way down to the bottom. Like not every protester that's out there. Some of these people actually are true believers. The thing is, like these community activists have to get out there and they have to find people that believe, right? And when they find people that believe, then those people will invite friends that maybe half-ass believe but want to be involved, right? And especially when it comes to women, you can tap into their emotional, you know, side, and oh, it's horrible. Like these illegal immigrants are getting sent back to these third world countries to where they may be destitute, and you know, there's this desire to help and to be, you know, loving and giving and motherly towards these poor illegal immigrants. And I get it to an extent. I mean, there's a compassionate side, you know, that you you got to look at these things honestly and kind of, okay, I get it, right? But men as well are attracted to these kinds of things. And the reason is some of them for ideological reasons, like the guy I was talking about before that was like, yeah, if you think last year was bad, just wait. And it did not happen in 2021 as he predicted, but it looks like it's starting to happen now. Excuse me. So it looks like it's starting to happen now. Like they're starting to move into that more violent direction again. It kind of you kind of saw it starting to bubble up with the whole Tesla thing and people showing up to Tesla dealerships and setting Teslas on fire. They were freaking attacking people's cars out in public, you know, that were driving Teslas. There were funny videos about guys being, you know, approached by car owners that were like, "Hey, man, did you keep my car?" Like, no. Well, you know, my car has like 12 cameras on it, and I got a video of you keying a swastika onto my car. And the guy's like, well, I didn't mean it. I don't know what happened, blah, 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 blah. And this is that, you know, ideological possession. They're being possessed by this idea that Teslas are, you know, a sign of like fascism and Hitlerian, you know, genocide or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you people are ridiculous. Y'all have lost your fucking minds. But it's all being done with intent and it's all moving in a specific direction. And the harder that Trump pulls to the right and the harder that the Republican Party pulls to the right and that culture pulls to the right, the harder they're going to fight because they believe in their system to such a degree they're willing to kill as many people as it takes to get it there. They're willing to damage as much property as it takes to get us moving in that direction. Now, not everybody that believes in this kind of more like socially progressive, you know, socialistic kind of idea is violent, but they will excuse the violence because the ends justifies the means. And so when you have a government entity like USAID funding these people creating these large scale movements on the ground, you're going to have a lot of chaos, a lot of mayhem. Could you imagine? I mean, I heard some of this stuff was going on in a Home Depot parking lot, and there, and I was like, imagine my son gets a puppy for his birthday, and I'm like, hey, you know what we ought to do? We ought to go to Home Depot and get some supplies and build a doghouse. Me and you will build a doghouse for your new puppy. And so we'll go to Home Depot Saturday morning. We'll pick up the supplies we need, and we'll come home and we'll build a doghouse that Saturday. That's what we'll do. That'll be our bonding time. And you get to Home Depot and there's this freaking riot, and you got this like 6, 7 year old kid with you, and you're trying to keep him safe. And like you feel, I mean, you got to feel panic. You know, like, what do I do here in this situation? This is terrible. You know, nobody wants to experience that. And these people understand that. And then they justify it and they're like, well, if they weren't doing this, we wouldn't have to do this. So you should be on our side because we're not the ones that are messing up your Saturday. It's them because of the action they're taking. We have to do this to protect the rule of law from those that, are sworn to protect the rule of law. And so it's this whole cycle. And this is kind of what we were talking about with the ANC, how the ANC would go into to the villages and go into the townships and attack the impoverished people. And they would attack the impoverished people in order to recruit more impoverished people onto their side to increase the size of their army so that they had this revolution kind of movement going on. This was how, typical like Bolshevism, Bolshevik revolution type shit worked. You attack the average person so that the average person then is frustrated. They get frustrated with the system. That's what it's all about. It's about getting them frustrated with the system. They may be pissed off at you at the moment, but it's not your fault that this is going on. It's the system's fault for not being able to stop it. The more the system doesn't stop it, the more irritated they get at the system. This is kind of how I ended up in the libertarian world. Is I was looking around, I was looking at how things were going. I was already freaking like kind of disheveled and upset about, the way life had gone and the things that I I looked at as, disservices and injustices that I've witnessed in my life, as far as like going through divorces, the relationship with my children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was already had like this predisposed notion to be pissed off at the system because I felt like the system didn't work for me. It only worked for some people, and I wasn't one of those some people that it's going to work for. It's not designed to work for me. It's designed to work for others. And so it gets you all fucking, you get all amped up on it. And then you start looking and you're like, okay, well, who else feels this way? And why is it the system like this? And then you start reading books and you start finding like different ideologies. I found libertarianism. I'm not especially at my age now, I'm not prone to violence. This is just not it's just not the way my mind works. I'm much more prone to sit and think and try to like strategize and figure out how I'm going to maneuver around these things, and kind of libertarianism and that kind of group, that kind of circle, that kind of, I was able to find like-minded people in that circle that kind of thought about things the same way. But there are people that are prone to violence and that lash out, right? Like you see the 2-year-old in the grocery store, right? And that's what it is. They're throwing a temper tantrum. They'll go out there and they'll throw a fucking temper tantrum because they don't have the emotional maturity to know how to express themselves. So then you gather a large crowd of these emotionally immature people throwing temper tantrums out on the street, and you get chaos everywhere. And then you have these ideologically captured people that are prone to violence that want to set things on fire. They're all wearing black bloc. They're all wearing masks so that so they can't be identified, one from the other. So, Trump's whole idea is like, well, if they're wearing masks, arrest them all. Arrest everybody that's wearing a mask because it's a conspiracy, and it is. It's an underlying conspiracy. They do that so you can't recognize who they are, so they can't be arrested, so they can get away with the crimes that they know they're going to commit, or that some of them are going to commit. Like even the people that aren't doing the crimes, a lot of the people that aren't doing the crimes are wearing the mask, wearing the black bloc, are involved in these protests, and they're providing cover for those that are actually committing the crimes, right? So, and all this is funded by government. It's all coming out of the community organizers are getting paid by NGOs that are funded by USAID, right? And so this is what the whole argument against USAID is. I mean, there was other stuff like trans puppet shows in Guatemala or whatever the hell else was going on. There's all that crap. But the real like strong argument against USAID is the way that they utilize NGOs to support political uprisings and overthrow governments and topple governments. I mean, that's what the number one thing that maybe it's not like the number one thing as far as quantity, but as far as like what they're really, really good at is utilizing that soft power and overthrowing governments through funding of different organizations there, in locations like wherever in different countries, even in the U.S. I mean, and we continue to see it, and you're going to continue to see it until the country moves in that leftist direction. The thing about the communism or socialism, is the closer you get to that, the further away you are from it. Like you never arrive. You're never there. It's never completed. The revolution's an ongoing thing, and it never stops. And there's always a new enemy, and there's always a new person to freaking demonize and oppress and kill. And so, but that's what they want. That's the system they want. They want to move into that system. Not all of them, but there are a lot of useful idiots in these crowds. They get caught up in the moment. They want to be a part of something. Like I was saying, young men especially want to be a part of something. They want to be seen as a hero. They want to be seen as being a revolutionary for the good. They want to be, Luke Skywalker, type deal. And that's and so that mentality of being frustrated with the system, having the desire to be a hero, to be something bigger, the dreams and aspirations of grandeur. I sound like Kamala Harris. Uh, having these grand idea of yourself and your self worth and your ability and your ambition, and you see an easy way. You're like, I can be part of something. I can be part of something bigger than me, something that's going to outlast all of us. Blah 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 blah. But this something that these people are part of is going to like trash society, and it creates chaos and mayhem intentionally so that they can shift public opinion, public sentiment into their side, pissed off at the institutions. We need a change. And with the election of Trump, that kind of idea, that mindset was hijacked by Trump. And those of us that are less likely to be violent, who are capable of violence, but less likely to resort to violence as a first, or second, result. Um, we're more attracted to that sort of revolutionary movement of, hey, we gotta overthrow the system by utilizing the system, right? And that's not to say I'm fully on board with everything that President Trump does, but there's a lot of things that I do actually look at and I'm like, okay, I like this. I can see where he's trying to get with this. This makes a lot of sense. Like the number one thing with me with USAID, I've spent a lot of time looking into USAID, color revolutions, how these things work, how they operate, how they, and so understanding that that's what he was attacking. I mean, that was like right there. I was like, hell yeah. Now I just wish they would go after NQTel, but it doesn't look like that's going to be a thing. Um, and then we use these tabloid kind of headlines to kind of cover you know news that's scandalous, and ooh, Diddy did this and Diddy did that, and did Diddy do it, and et cetera, et cetera. Meghan Markle is a fucking cunt, blah 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 blah. And it's like, I don't care about these people. And you're covering these news stories, but you're not covering the things that are actually impacting people, right? You were talking about, you know, Meghan Markle and Diddy. Like, who cares about Diddy's trial? I don't care. If the guy goes to jail, he goes to jail. If he doesn't, he doesn't. I'm like, it has no impact on me whatsoever, right? If it's found that he's a criminal and he's doing these things, I'm sure he'll get what he deserves, like whatever, you know. And that's not my issue. My issue is that there are these kind of revolutionary guard types in our country that are creating these uprisings, and they're utilizing federal funds and tax dollars that we're paying in order to do it. And where does this come from? This comes from a divided nation, and they've done everything they can to divide us. I was looking today just out of curiosity because I've always heard it said that that there's a lot of LGBTQ days or whatever, and I didn't even count them. I was just kind of looking through the list that's on GLAAD's website. I mean, it's insane. You got every HIV AIDS day is is considered LGBTQ. I guess they're admitting it now that if you're heterosexual and you're not a drug addict, you're not getting AIDS. That's just not the way it works. I guess. I mean, I guess it's okay. We can say that nowadays. But here we go. It's February 7th, National Black HIV AIDS Awareness Day. Week after Valentine's Day, Aromantic Spectrum Awareness Week, whatever the fuck that is. Uh, February 28th, HIV is not a crime awareness day. March is Bisexual Health Awareness Month. There's a week in March that varies. It's National LGBT Health Awareness Week. March 10th is National Women and Girls HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. March 20th, National Native HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. March 31st, International Transgender Day of Visibility. April 6th, International Asexuality Day. April 10th, National Youth HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. The third Friday of April is a day of silence. I wish they would shut the fuck up. April 18th, National Transgender HIV Testing Day. April 18th, Non Binary Parents Day. April 26th, Lesbian Visibility Day. First Sunday in May, International Family Equality Day. May 17th, International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. May 19th, National Asian and Pacific Islander HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. May 22nd, Harvey Milk Day. May 24th, Pansexual and Panromantic Awareness and Visibility Day. June, obviously, is Pride Month. June 1st is LGBTQ Families Day. June 12th, Pulse Remembrance. The Pulse shooting, I guess. The Pulse nightclub. June 15th, anniversary of U.S. Supreme Court Bostock decision expanding protections to LGBTQ employees. June 26th, anniversary of U.S. Supreme Court legalizing marriage equality. June 27th, National HIV Testing Day. June 28th, Stonewall Day. June 30th, Queer Youth of Faith Day. I don't fucking know what that fuck that means. The week of July 14th is Non-Binary Awareness Week. July 14th is Non-Binary People's Day. International Drag Day is July 16th. August 14th is Gay Uncles Day. August 20th, Southern HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. September 18th, National HIV/AIDS and Aging Awareness Day. Okay. Week of September 23rd, Bisexual and Awareness Week culminates in celebrate okay, in the celebration, I guess is what it's supposed to say, of Bisexuality Day on September 23rd. September 27th, National Gay Men's HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. October, LGBTQ History Month. So you got a Pride Month and you got a History Month. October 8th, International Lesbian Day. October 11th, National Coming Out Day. October 15th, National Latinx HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. October 19th, National LGBT Center Awareness Day. Third Wednesday in October, International Pronouns Day. What the fuck? Third Thursday in October, Spirit Day. Okay. Last week in October, Asexual Awareness Week. October 26th, Intersex Awareness Day. First Sunday of November, Transgender Parent Day. November 13th through 19th is Transgender Awareness Week. November 20th is Transgender Day of Remembrance. December 1st, World AIDS Day. December 8th, Pansexual, Panromantic Pride Day. I thought we already had that day, like earlier in the year, whatever. December 14th, HIV Cure Research Day. Okay, well, I'm glad. I'm glad we have all those fucking days set aside for these people. But see, that's the point. They utilize this and as is kind of like a power grab from the cultural level. They get the cult. They're trying to get the culture to be more accepting of of changing of holidays, like getting away from, Memorial Day or Labor Day or, 4th of July or any kind of national, day of remembrance, whether it's for, D-Day or, invasion of Normandy or whatever, whatever day, you might want to celebrate and recognize, the greatness of the United States. They want to replace it with these cultural um, kind of dynamics like pride and stuff like that. And they want to separate you from the from the national identity. And those then it bifurcates the entire system. Well, not the system, but the entire society, because now you have like all these people that are fighting this culture war. Half of them don't like the United States, and they're the ones that are holding these protests, bombing cars, setting fires, flying Venezuelan flags and Mexican flags at these protests, burning American flags. And then you got people that are very patriotic that are like, hey, man, like you are trying to hijack our culture. You're getting rid of all these, all the great stuff, the great accomplishments of the past, and tearing down statues and doing all these things. And so it turns into this cultural battle that's waged, and it's going back and forth. And it's not to say there aren't good people, as Trump would say, good people on both sides, but it leaves an opening for these real, aggressive activist types that are very, very far in one direction or the other, that are okay with violence and want to amplify and see it as a chance for them to create chaos and mayhem in order to move the culture, further one way or the other, whichever direction they're trying to move the culture in. And so they're taking advantage of these situations, and they're taking advantage of a lot of like well-meaning people that get caught up in these protests, and they think they're doing the right thing, and they believe that there is some injustice, and they're nonviolent, and they just want to, hey, like they want to grab attention and get attention brought to some of these issues. And so, but that leaves that opening for the riots and for the insurrection style kind of like things. I mean, we could see it with like January 6th, right? Like it was there weren't a lot of violent people at January 6th, but there were enough violent people that it created enough chaos to where what was that, hundreds or I think it was over 1,000 people were arrested, for insurrection, and it was like, no, it was a riot. It got out of hand, and there were people that were intentionally antagonizing it, and that's what they were there to do. They're not good actors, right? And so we see this, and we'll move to this quote unquote big beautiful bill, the big beautiful bullshit. But we see it in the way that we talk about things, right? We talk about policy. Let's say like Medicaid or Medicare, right? You'll hear people on the left, oh, they're cutting Medicaid. Well, no, that's not really what's happening. Like that's not exactly the truth, you know. And they'll say, well, they're cutting Medicare. Well, no, we're just not we just don't want to increase Medicare's payout 9% a year. We want to increase it 2% a year. So that's not a cut. It's still increasing. It's just not increasing by as much as you want it to increase. So you say it's a cut, but it's not a cut, right? So with this big beautiful bill, you'll hear, oh, they're cutting Medicaid. But what they're doing is actually very popular in amongst the electorate. Is they're saying if you're an able-bodied young adult, like say 20, 22, 23, and you're not at least working like what 20, 30 hours a month, then you're not getting Medicaid. Like you're not offering anything to the system. You can't drain the system. Like that's just it's not going to happen. And that's what they're saying. They're saying no. Illegal immigrants are not going to be able to, whether it's in California where they have Medi-Cal or whatever, like illegal immigrants are no go. We will cut off your funding for your medical program in your state if you are providing this this taxpayer paid medical insurance to illegal immigrants. That's a no go. And that's one of their stances. Another one of their stances is if you're an able bodied young adult, not out looking for a job, not working at least 20, 30 hours a month, which isn't very much. I mean, I think it comes out to like 5 hours a week is all they're asking for. It's very, very easy. Then you're not going to qualify for Medicaid. It's like, okay, like who cares? Okay, yeah, you got to give a little to get. You can't just drain the system dry. So that's one of the things they're doing. All right. You hear this whole kind of idea about the $4 trillion deficit that this bill is going to create, increase the deficit. Well, that's your tax money. That's what they're figuring. If they do not pass this bill, at the end of the year, taxes will go up about 3.5% for everybody across the board. Everybody's getting about 3.5%. So they're saying if taxes are not increased, this is the CBO saying this, the Congressional Budget Office. If taxes are not increased at the end of the year, then it's going to cost the federal government $4 trillion. That's what they're saying. What that means is they are not collecting $4 trillion out of your pocket. They're not taking $4 trillion from the taxpayer, from the American people. That's what they're figuring. That's what the Congressional Budget Office is configuring. They look at it as their money. They allow you to keep some of their money. Whereas most of us look at it as our money and they're taking our money, because we worked for that. We traded our man hours, our skills, our abilities for that money, and they take it from us. But that's not how they see it. They see it as they allow you to keep some of their money. That is, if it were, if they wanted to, they have the right to confiscate it all from you, and there's nothing you can say or do about it because it's theirs. So it's a complete different perspective and the way of looking at things. And so you'll hear these media personalities go, well, it's increasing the deficit. Well, no, it's not really increasing the deficit. What it's doing is allowing American citizens to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pocket. That's it. That's what it's doing, right? And then but they'll never see the one thing they got smart about is they don't argue about the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, right? Which is going to actually help the more the more vulnerable, as they would say, of the population, right? If I go out, like let's say I'm making, I don't know, let's say I make $20 now, right? Which means my time and a half pay on overtime after 40 hours during a week is 30. Let's just say, for instance. And I pay 20, I don't know, 20, let's say 23%, 25%, let's just say 25% taxes on the first 40 hours, then I'm going to pay close to 30% on overtime, right? It's a higher percentage. And so what they're I think what they're trying to do is to get no taxes at all on overtime, but I think what it's going to end up being like, and I think what it's going to end up doing is going to say, we're just not charging you a higher tax rate on overtime, that your tax rate is going to stay at 25% or 20% or whatever it is. I think it's 23. But and so you're still going to be taxed. It's just not you're not going to be taxed at such a level at such a high level because I think like if I work 10 hours of overtime right now, I think I keep about I don't know a little over half of it, just a little over half of it. I think almost half of it is gone in taxes if I'm not mistaken. I know like when I've gotten bonuses before and I've looked at my bonus checks and it's like half of it's gone. It's like just half of that bonus check was vanished. And so that's what they're trying to do. And I appreciate that. Now, not everything in the bill is going to be good. I understand that. It's huge. It's freaking not everything these people want is good and is good for us. And there's some fighting about the AI portion of the bill. I know that there's a lot of people that are upset that they didn't put any of the rescissions into the bill. Well, that's because a reconciliation bill is not is only about guaranteed spending. It's money they have to spend, and so it's about taxes and entitlements for the most part. That's mainly what it is. Um, it doesn't get into the discretionary spending, and a lot of the Doge cuts and stuff like that is going to be more of a discretionary spending problem. And you already see that there are a lot of Congress people that are backing down. Like I think Elon said he found about $160 billion worth of cuts over what it was 130 days that he was there, and the bill that they have put together is less than 10 billion in cuts. You know, so we have to understand that there's this complete disconnect from the American people. They do not care what we want, as far as like being more fiscally minded and better on spending. And the far left, those that are operating and running these NGOs and these programs, um, around the world, are fighting tooth and nail, utilizing their access to people like George Soros and these other people that have set up these NGOs and built these NGOs, have funded and financed these NGOs, and lobby the government to continue to funnel taxpayer money into these NGOs. It's an uphill battle. You're really talking about a situation where you're looking at complete. I think Chuck Schumer is on record as saying, or I heard it said, that when he went and had a meeting with Biden. I think he was the last person to talk to Biden and convince Biden to pull out of the 2024 election. And that when he went and talked to Biden, one of the things he told Biden, he's like, "Look, if we lose this election, it will undo 50 years of progress." And this is what he's talking about. He's talking about this deep state, corrupt, financial money laundering scheme that they have just turned the United States government into. This whole underbelly is rotten to the core. And Trump, it appears he is trying to dig a lot of that core out of there. But a lot of this stuff goes back so far, and it's so entrenched into the system that it's a very, very strenuous process. And the judges are on the payroll of this system, and they don't want to let Trump undo their money train. So it's just a big fight, and that's what we're watching. And no matter what you think about the contents of the complete subject of this bill, I think it would be better if they did taxes, spending, Medicaid, Social Security, blah blah blah, and did it piece by piece. I think it'd be better that way. But Congress isn't nimble enough to get things done like that. They're not. It's a lot of the reason why people want the Trump to have executive unitary powers, not executive unitary powers. Excuse me. I kind of mixing up words here. So so this is why people, especially in kind of like we live in a, the we live in a world of immediate gratification. And it's hard for us to watch the way that Congress just lulls and drags and drags and drags. I mean, here we are 6 months into the year, right? And they're getting one bill. It's like, what the fuck have y'all been doing? And the Senate still, they're talking about it'll be July before it passes. That's great. I mean, the taxes need to be put into place before the end of the year, because at the end of the year is when everybody's taxes will go up if they don't pass this bill. But the fact of the matter, they put all this stuff in there, and these pet projects in there for their communities that they represent, because they know that the taxes are so important to people, to the American people, that if the American people see their taxes go up 3.5% at the end of this year, they're going to revolt against everything that Donald Trump has put his name behind, and what he said he's attempting to do. So therefore, they know that we can put all this other crap in here, and some of it, like I said, is probably terrible. Like the AI portion I heard is where a big part of the fight's going. They want to. I think basically what it is they're trying to set up AI in such a way, or the regulations on AI, to be so lenient that you can almost do anything with AI, because they don't want, like, places like California or New York over regulating AI and stumping the growth and allowing China to get past us in the development of AI. But there's a real concern on behalf of, like, artists utilizing, like, let's say, like singer-songwriters, right? Let's say I write a song, but I want it sung by Chris Cornell. Well, Chris Cornell's dead. But if there are no regulations regulating like kind of the way AI is utilized and how you can make money utilizing the AI, then you can have Chris Cornell sing a song that you write and you can gather all the funds on it, even though you're utilizing his image, his likeness, his sound, his voice. It's, so that's where a lot of the fight's coming from. There's this kind of like give and take, and they're trying to figure out the best way to deal with that. And I think I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't really consider it to be that important to me, but maybe it is. Maybe somebody will take my likeness and my voice and do better shows than I can do and freaking make millions of dollars. I don't know. Maybe I doubt it. I don't. I think my likeness and voice is probably most of my problems. But anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I know it's a little rambly and kind of went down some rabbit holes, but I think that kind of clears some stuff up. Hopefully, over the next couple of weeks, work will start kind of calming down. I'll be able to get back into a rhythm of some more podcast guests. It's just been a little rough here recently. Been a little caught up, and I figured while it was drizzling and raining today, I would get on, I'd jump on and record an episode based upon some of the stuff I see going on around us. Y'all have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your week. It's Monday now, but it'll be Thursday when you're hearing this. So enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk later.